Well, hello everyone. Welcome to episode 3. So this week I'm going to do it a little differently. I'm going to release 2 videos. Today, you get to find about how I planned my exit strategy, how I got out from that life, right? And able to talk to you all today about that journey, right? So join me, come on down, and let's see, maybe you and I share similar stories. And if we do, please feel free to comment about it and your experiences. So, how did I plan my exit? My exit escape plan. Now, I want to start out by strongly cautioning you on this video, right? Because it is quite sensitive, and I understand that several of you who are watching this video are probably still living in that situation. So I just want to be very clear that your safety is a priority. So as you are watching this video, please make sure that if you don't feel safe in your home, have a plan to make sure that you're able to get out the video as quickly as possible. So without further ado, let's dive in. Okay, so Max, remember in the last episode, I talked about October 8th, 2023 being the date that I knew I wanted to leave. But I want to take it back a little bit, right? So this man and I were married since 2006. Within about 6 months into our marriage, I knew that this was not it, right? Honestly, I did. 5 years into our marriage, I really wanted to leave, but I just didn't have the option to leave. And I'm sure several of you have the same situation going on. You just, right now is just not the right time, whether it's financially, because you have children, because you're taking care of a sick parent, whatever the reason is, now is to address that as well, right? So my escape plan, and originally I didn't really think about it as an escape plan, but in hindsight, it was what it was, because starting about 5 years into our marriage, so around 2009, something like that, I was like, I'm going to grad school. Because I knew that I had to develop myself, my skill set, and pursue my education, because a girl's got to have a backup plan, right? Like, God forbid something happened to my spouse. I would need to be able to take care of the children without his income. So I think just having that in the back of my head, that I needed a backup plan, I think deep down I knew that this marriage was not forever, right? Like excuse me, my glasses. I just knew that I would need to exit whatever this situationship. I think I've heard some content creators refer to it as a situationship and things like that. And so, yeah, it's just what I knew. Right. And so I pursued my master's degree. I did the internships. And then, I believe in an earlier video, I also mentioned I pursued my passions, right? And so as I was interested in, my background is in political science, public policy, I worked on campaigns. I volunteered with campaigns. I did a lot of things that were super involved with politics. That was my passion. And so that was just another way. Those are things that I could just add on my resume. But beside that, I started volunteering. And people snooze on volunteering, but listen, volunteering teaches you so many skills, right? As a Catholic, I'm a member of St. Vincent de Paul Society. And so just being a volunteer with that organization, for example, I got to learn how to bookkeep. I was doing bookkeeping. I learned how to help people budget. I learned how to counsel people going through very difficult situations. So those are all real life skills. Yes, I wasn't being paid, but those are all real life skills that translates in the real world in a career, right? I volunteered in my kids' school, so volunteering at the library, at the media center, that allowed me to learn how a library works. So if I wanted to do a part-time job at a library, oops, I got the skill set, right? Volunteering, big brother, big sister, I'm mentoring children and youth. So all of that, being a catechist, I'm teaching in a classroom. So all of those skills, I got them from volunteering. And so I'm building up this resume where, in all the volunteering opportunities that I had, I built up leadership skill. I built up mentoring skill. I built up teaching teaching skills, just a plethora of things. Public speaking, those are all real life skills that translate into a career. So if you are not in a place, if your spouse or your partner is like, my wife doesn't work, my wife cannot work, whatever the reason is, oh, honey, but I'm not working, I'm volunteering. Vacation Bible School, being a coordinator for that. Listen, our Vacation Bible School had 300 youth and over 55 adult volunteers, right, that I had to coordinate, who had to be web, train people. Those are real life skills. And so did a lot of that. So for me, when I say my escape plan, it started early on, like build those building blocks. But please don't sleep on those building blocks for yourself. However, let's fast forward, right? So October 8th, I know I gotta go. So I start applying for jobs. So the first thing I need to do, I need to make sure I'm secured financially. And I knew that the job I was at the time was so stressful that absolutely not was I going to do that. A single mom raising children with a baby, I couldn't. It wasn't going to be sustainable. So I was applying. I was going to job fairs. I was putting myself out there, revamping my resume, working with a wonderful lady that I met that is now actually a friend. I would consider her a friend, and she really helped me streamline that resume. So tap into that. So there's that financial piece, right? Now, I wasn't able to save money, and that's a big piece. You should be able to save money. But unfortunately for me, the money that I had been saving, the narcissist in my life, wiped out my savings account and my checkings account just at a very convenient time. And for me, that was just quite vindictive because the person did it once I decided I did not want to stay married to them. And suddenly, oh, can I borrow $60 for the power bill? And I go and check my bank account and it's been wiped out. So be very careful as you're trying to exit. Make sure that if you got to remove the person, do it safely. But I opened a whole separate bank account, right? Because after he did the whole wiping of my bank account, I was like, it only takes once for me to learn, and I learned. So I had a whole different bank account, different access codes, and I was changing passwords constantly, right? I created a whole new email address that he was not aware of. I literally had a whole different persona. I was lucky that I'm not on social media. For those of you who are on social media, that's maybe an extra piece, but I'm not really on social media, things like that. And so I didn't really have to worry about that. But, I'm on LinkedIn, for example. And so I deleted any connections I had with his friends, with his family. Anybody who would trace my steps, follow my steps, I X them out. Like if they were connected with them, but they were not tight with me, they had zero access to me. So I did that. So that's the money piece for me. But the other piece, and I think the piece that I am so grateful I did while I was working, right? I aggressively put money into my pension fund. And so that really helped me because when he decided that he wasn't going to pay the mortgage, he decided he wasn't going to pay the utilities or any bills pertaining to the house, my kids still needed a place to stay. My kids still needed food. My kids still needed to have power in the house and water in the house. And so I took out my pension and I handled it. So there's some penalties. So I had to weigh the pros and cons. So I'm not saying go take out your pension and do that. But, having money stocked away somewhere is so important, However you do it, whether it's, whenever I would have money, whether it's $10, $5, I would save it. And that really helped me when he decided that he was not going to be a participant in the household. Having that little bit of money allowed me to be able to make sure that my daughter had money for her school lunch, for example. My son had diapers, for example, right? So those things, they do help. The other piece with my escape is don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to say, I need help. You will be surprised how many people are willing to help if you just speak up. Now, I know a lot of people make fun of those long questionnaires at the doctor's office that ask you about your mental health state and all the things. And where I was living at the time, they did that. I'm not sure if they do it in all the states, but I definitely know where I was living. There was a long list of questions that you answered. And that honestly saved my life. I can't say that enough. That saved my life because all the doctors I went to and I said, I need help. When I tell you those people stepped up for me, those people connected me with resources, social workers, cry. Those people checked in on me and facilitated my escape. Please, they're on your side. If you can find a good doctor, a good medical team, and I'm telling you, it will help. My medical team, as soon as they heard my story and they saw my experience, they made sure that I knew there were resources available, but not just that they made sure to connect me with those resources. So for those of you out there who are doctors, nurses, who work in the medical field, I know we always say you save lives, but please know that when you pay attention to someone and you hear them out, really hear them out, you are changing the trajectory of their lives. You are changing the trajectory of their life, because that's what they did for me. And my medical team didn't just do connecting me and all that. They even made sure they connected me with a medical team in my follow-up destination where my exit plan was taking me. They made sure I had a doctor, and we came up with a strategy. So people, when you go see your doctor, when you go see your OBGYN, when you go see your general practitioner, whoever it is, when they ask you, how are you doing? I know it's hard. I know, because it was hard for me. It was extremely hard for me. But I told them I'm not okay. I'm not okay. I'm not okay. And they went to work. So your medical team, such an important support system. And the other thing you need to have in your escape plan, which I had, was my 3 friends. I had a friend, I call all my friends, everybody who helped me on this journey, I call them all my angels. And I've told them that, right? They're all my angels, because I honestly believe God placed them at the right time, at the right place, in order for me to be able to be here to tell this story to you all. So my 3 friends, one of them was my walking partner, and I could not yell at the narcissist every day, the toxic person in my life. We have children in the house, right? And every day he was starting a fight, and so she and I would walk, like just the walking every day, 5 miles, 10 miles, some days 15 miles. It's like we were walking our problems away, and we were laughing. And so just that being outside in fresh air, we'd walk in parks, we'd walk in our neighborhood, and just being outside together, laughing, that was such a gift. My other 2 friends, they were in the background. One of them, every time I had to interact with this man, he didn't know this, but she was on the call listening to everything that was being said. Everything that was being said, because if something happened, she was dialing 911. So I'm not saying your friends need to be on a call, and please listen, look at the laws in your state. But in my case, because I knew this person was always gaslighting, was always lying, was always twisting the truth, it was so important for me to have somebody else listening to make sure that I heard what I heard and he said what he said. And so that's what I was dealing with. So I had that one friend who did that. And then my other friend was my friend where all my mail, remember I said I opened a new bank account, everything, all my documentation was going to her. She was if I needed to run in the middle of the line, she was my person. And so he didn't know this person particularly, so I don't think he knew her at all. And actually, that's the best thing, right? Because you want to go completely MIA at some point. And so those were, and I had other friends, but those were the 3 musketeers that really, really were part of my support network to help me get through it. But in that tribe, I also had my family, my parents, when it was time, when he decided to leave and he left me with 4 diapers and no groceries. My dad, sent me money, right? My brother stepped in and helped me. So your family can also be, now I know some families are toxic. I get it, right? And maybe my family can be a little toxic too. So we all have it, I think. But knowing how to rally the troops and knowing who is in your corner is so very important. So very important. And then my therapist. Oh my gosh. If you don't have a therapist in your corner while you're going through this journey, my friend, I don't know if you are trying to get a medal for the most resilient, most strong willed person in the world, but trust me, your therapist is a gift. My therapist helped me center myself. And so I wouldn't have been able to stay calm without that therapist. And so, yeah, the part of my escape plan, right? So those are the main 3 things I think were so important. My medical team, my support network, and saving money or how to manage money, right? How to handle that. But having said that, what did I learn? Right? Because it was a tough journey, right? It was tough. I learned that the people who will have your back will surprise you. Some of the people you might think, oh, that's my buddy and that's my friend. That person always got my back and they're going to have my back. Those people didn't answer their phones when I called. Right? Maybe that's your story. Some of those people, suddenly I couldn't get through. And so now don't sit there thinking, oh, Alicia, that's horrible. That's so sad. No. Because again, clarity, right? Because those people showed me their true colors. And because of their true colors, I was able to X them out of my life. I was able to say, you no longer have access to me. I love you. I wish you well, but you can't be in my circle. Okay? And so maybe you have those kinds of friends, right? But I also learned that the people who really came through for me, right? Think about it. I went to a career fair. A lady who was helping me with my resume is now a dear friend. And as soon as she found out about what I was going through, she sent me pages and pages of resources, online resources, legal aid resources. Like, it was just, wow. Like, I had no idea, because you don't know what you don't know. And in my case, I was fairly new to the area, so I didn't really know. I was isolated. And so that was amazing. My kids' friends' parents, they would watch the kids while I had to run to court, or, like they gave me money when I had to escape really quickly. Like, you don't know who's going to help you. But you gotta be willing to speak up and say, I'm in trouble. I need help. And that's hard. I also learned that the narcissist, oh my gosh, will say anything and everything to win. Oh, the lies. The lies. I mean, I remember when I was getting my protective order, he stood in court and said, I could never be a violent person. I've never served in the armed forces. Sir, we literally have a VA loan. Okay. Right? And so it's just stupid stuff like that. You're just like, are we living in the same universe? But for narcissists, they don't care. They, as long as they can get away with it, that's all that matters. So winning is all that matters. Winning at all cost is all that matters. And so I learned that really quickly. And I want to be very clear about this: prioritizing your safety. Your safety. In everything that you do, you have to make sure you're safe, because narcissists, you don't know what's going to trigger them. Oftentimes you hear people say, oh, he would never, she would never. That's why they have all those ID shows, is it? Or the first 48 and all the shows, Snapped, right? You don't know what a person's going to do when they feel cornered. And it is not your business to find out. In my case, when I was leaving, because I donate a lot, right? Like I would donate or to declutter my house and things like that. I would donate to Goodwill, things like that quite often, several times a year, or I would donate to, different organizations that needed whatever they needed. And so the way I packed was kind of in that vein, right? Like I'm packing to take things to the Salvation Army, for example, right? And I mean, I'm just throwing a name out there. And so I was putting things in trash bags. I didn't take out a suitcase. So every day I was taking things a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. And I would go drop it off. Remember, I had that one friend where I dropped off things at? Yeah, I would go take it to her house, And so I built it up for like several weeks. I was slowly every day. I would take a bag. I would, take my kid to school. And from her school, go and drop off the bag. Or after school, go drop off a bag. And so slowly I packed up whatever was important to me, pictures, my grandmother's quilts, like whatever. Because for me, when you decide to leave, you need to understand that you need to commit to leaving permanently. So for me, I knew once I leave, I'm not coming back. So I had to make sure I was leaving with all the things that I needed. So in my case, I need to make sure that I was leaving with my grandma's quilt because she's not going to make any more. Arthritis is alive and well. And grandma said, y'all got all y'all quilts. And so I respect the lady. I got those things, right? Those things that had emotional significance for me. But things like our wedding pictures, I didn't take them because I don't want them. I'm changing that chapter. Yeah, if my children want to have them, well, hopefully their dad has them because I don't want them. So there is that. So do it discreetly. And then I left. I left one morning, just like any morning, to drop off my daughter at school. So maybe your routine, maybe it's when you go to work. Maybe whatever your routine is, maybe it's you're going to the grocery store, never to return. I didn't even have a date set because for me, I was like, my daughter's school year is going to be finishing soon, and I just want to make sure that I'm able to leave. But then, he had the audacity to just say, I'm not going to be aggressive instead of just passive aggressive or stonewalling you. And I was like, you're not about to lay hands on me. Mm-mm. So those of you who that is your story, get out. Do not let the person put their hands on you, not another minute. Okay? Get out. Get out. I got out before it got to that because, no. And the final thing is, you got to be secretive. I know it sucks. Like, you feel like you're hiding, you're being like them a little bit, but this secrecy is to save your life. That's exactly what this. You are being secretive to save your life. Because we don't want this person to realize that their toy, which is you, and I, is leaving. So I was very secretive. I didn't say anything. And leading up to that, whenever he would start a fight, I would just be like, okay, that's cool. Okay, whatever you say, that's adorable. Come up with whatever sayings you're going to just keep saying over and over again. They're going to get irritated, maybe, hopefully not. But, when you're ready to go, because when he told me he was going to be aggressive, okay, all my things that I needed out were gone. Okay. So having said all of that, having an escape plan, knowing that I can count on people. Now, how do I move forward? Or how can you move forward? So as I was leaving, I created a safety check, right? I created a safety check. So that's one thing you have to have as well, a safety check. And what do you need to include in that safety check? You need to make sure that you have your cell phone and your cell phone charger. Now, I want to caution you. My covert narcissist was tracking my vehicle, was tracking me and all the things. And as an IT person, he has skill sets that I don't have. And so make sure you're turning off all those notifications. If you are in doubt, get a burner phone. That's your best safety, but get a burner phone. All those electronics, Apple, iPhone, whatever you got going on, you might have to get rid of those. Make copies of documents. I made a huge mistake once. I tore out a page out of his notebook of something we were talking about or something. And oh my gosh, I tore up one page and I was the devil. Keep in mind all the things he's done, right? So from that moment on, I took pictures of everything. I have pictures of everything. I've made copies of everything. So whenever he comes to me with craziness, I have proof of the truth, right? So when he says, I've never served in the armed forces, I have proof of his military documentation that he did serve and how long he served. So there's that. Also, have an emergency contact list so people know if something happens, they know who to reach out for. And this is for your kids. When you're moving like that, your tight circle needs to really be tight, but they need to be aware of when you're moving. So my 3 musketeers that I mentioned earlier, they knew I was headed to the shelter. They knew at what time I was going to get to the shelter. Like, they knew all the steps, because if something were to happen, I needed them to be able to speak up. And what you say and what you don't say are very important. So as you're leaving the house, don't yell out, yo, peace out. I'm never going to have to see you again. You're trying to get slapped. You're trying to get hurt. So be very wise and very discerning as to how you're going to communicate. And you know your home, you know your life. So in my case, I didn't have to say anything because guess what? He wasn't speaking to me. The silence treatment was alive and well, and it was glorious because I could just walk out the house with the kiddos as I did every morning, and he wouldn't be the wise. So make sure you have those boundaries in place, because you want to have a smooth exit, especially if you have children. You want to have a smooth exit. Finally, I want to encourage you to know that there's help for you. If you're in a domestic abuse situation, there are domestic violence shelters are there. And please note, it doesn't have to be physical abuse. I wasn't dealing necessarily with physical abuse, but the emotional, psychological abuse is just as damaging, and I would say even more so damaging. So domestic abuse shelters are everywhere, in every state, in most cities, most counties at least. There's legal aid. There are pro bono lawyers. Now, I didn't have much luck with pro bono lawyers because somehow, and this is something I feel like we need to work on and talk about, but somehow a lot of the resources completely miss middle class people, because everywhere I turned to get help, it was, well, your house mortgage is this much, so you don't need this. You don't qualify for this help. And it's like abuse doesn't care the money you have. I need help. I don't have access to my funds. I don't have access. And so that was a really hard pill to swallow. And I know that's something I'm going to really be probably advocating for more help, because everyone deserves assistance when you're trying to get out of these horrifying situations. And finally, online support groups. Whether there are a lot of content creators on YouTube making great content about narcissism, and so find your tribe, right? Like, you're into cooking. Find a group of people that you can connect with online so you can have your tribe. You can talk about things. I didn't necessarily use an online community because, as I mentioned, I'm not on social media, and I couldn't use my computer because he was tracking my movement through my computer, so that was very challenging. But my tribe, my group of friends, my friend circle is very tight, and we communicated every day, and so that helped me a lot. And so sometimes you just have to create your own village, whatever that looks like. But I do want to leave you with, don't announce your exit. That is so important. Leave when it is calm, not in the middle of fight, right? Leave when it is calm and say as little as possible. This could save your life and the life of your children. So just to be clear, as I close out this video, leaving is not weak. I'm going to repeat that again. Leaving is not weak. It is the bravest act of self-respect that you can do for yourself. Because you're saying, I love myself so much. I will not allow someone else to disrespect me. How powerful is that? So please drop in the comments if you're planning your exit. You don't have to give all the details if you don't feel like it. That's fine. If you want to send me an email instead, the email is courageuncovered@gmail.com. courageuncovered@gmail.com. I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to hear your experience. If you had if you had to exit, how did you do it? If you're planning on exiting, maybe you'd just like to bounce ideas with me. I'm happy to listen. I'm not trained in that at all, so I don't want you to think that, but I'm happy to listen, and I'm happy to hopefully be able to point you to resources that could help you for sure. Next episode, I'll share the emotional roller coaster that hit after I left. What happened? Right? Alicia, you left, and then what? You lived happily ever after? I don't know. So you have to come and see and check out episode 4 to find out, right? But until next time, I do want to encourage you to continue to rise with courage and to live with purpose, because you deserve it. You deserve peace. So goodbye, everyone. Until next time.